Rhythm and Soul Radio. I am Marco Nobles. We have our guest line open, and by now, those of you who've been listening and watching, you know that you can catch us on rhythmandsoulradio.com or on WHCR 90.3 FM in New York and WHCR.org. But we're also live video streaming on NWS.com. We're also on twitch.tv/Rhythm and Soul Radio and mixcloud.com/Rhythm and Soul Radio. I say all that is the prelude to introducing our guest who's joining us right now. He is a master musician, artist, Matt Cappy. What's going on, sir? How are you?
Man, fantastic. I'm well, Marco, and I'm honored to be here, and it's a pleasure. So I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Loving the single, Look at Us Now, and we're going to talk about that, but I want to make sure people kind of know who you are because you're one of those guys who's kind of, been one of the supporting players for a number of artists and songs that we all love. I mean, you've played on recordings or live with everyone from Queen Latifah to The Roots to Fred Hammond to Kirk Franklin to Music Soul Child, Jill Scott.
Yep.
I'm leaving out a bunch of folks, but you've been doing the Mavericks, which I thought was interesting because the Mavericks is one of the early favorite alternative country bands that I was into over the years.
That's awesome.
You've had quite an array of talent. You played on Butterflies on Michael Jackson's great single.
Yeah.
So you've had quite a journey, and then you released your own album a couple years ago,
Yes.
Church and State. So talk about that process as a musician who plays with so many artists, and then deciding when you're ready to do your own project where you are the featured name, so to speak.
Well, I think honestly you hit it perfectly because I felt like it was a natural progression for me as a musician turning into an artist myself after having been blessed to work with so many different great artists and see how they run their ship and how they write their music and being a part of that. And I just felt like it was time that I had enough music in me that was wanting to come out, and that I guess it was none other than it was just time. Honestly, I had I've been like I said I worked hard. I was blessed to play the top names as an R&B and hip hop, on soul. And I was the whole time just writing nuggets on the road, hotel room stuff, hours passed by, bring a little writing set up. So I had acquired, in writing Church and State, I had acquired a lot of different nuggets. And then it was like going through them and seeing which ones I wanted to develop. And then learning how to be a band leader too, and also the process of recording Church and State was also like lending my production hat as far as being the leader of the sessions and how I wanted the songs to ultimately come out and feel, and calling the right musicians. There were being able, being raised musically in Philly, there's so much talent here that I've have access to, and they're good friends of mine and toured with, a slew of good friends. So it was sort of like putting, little teams together. Like, who do I think really would make this song just go? And who do I think would make this song be perfect? And then sometimes it was like, well, honestly, there's so much talent. You can call any one of these people and they would be great on all of it. And then sometimes it was just like, okay, I could get the studio on this Tuesday and this bass player was available, and we did it that way. So Church and State was very much, a work in progress the whole time. There was, 3 songs, Phoenix, 856, and Rose Lane, we did in one night, live session kind of stuff, over the famous Larry Gold's studio down in Philly, called, quote unquote, The Studio, which I still love. That was always like my best, because you would ask like, hey, where are you recording your album? I'm saying, oh, the studio. And they're like, oh yeah, well, which one? I'm like, well, the studio. And they're like, but oh, that's the one in Philly. Yeah, that's the one in Philly. It's just called The Studio. But
Okay.
yeah, and so I'm very proud of Church and State. From a production, producer standpoint, to a writing standpoint, to a performance standpoint. You know, one of my favorite tracks is being able to have Marsha Ambrosius on Amazing Grace with a beautiful string
Mm.
orchestra. So I know that kind of confused some people in general, but I kind of, at first, at that, I just thought, you know, kind of like what I learned with Jill. It's like, and that would be Jill Scott. It's like, you got to do your best to make a really, really beautiful album. And after you do that, then you got to try to back it up, you know, impeccably on the road, you know, like, so if people didn't hear the record beforehand and say they just saw your live show, they would go away like, man, that was an incredible live show. That was worth $40. That was worth $20. That was, you know, my wife and I, my friend and I, whoever, we had a great time. Or if you heard the song on the album, or you know, the song on the radio, and you're like, man, you know, like when everyone first heard "Long Walk," it was like, man, what is this? It was like
Mm-hmm.
radio gold, right? But then when you would see Fatback Taffy and Jill Scott live for the first time, it was an all-encompassing show. Just incredible energy, incredible talent on every position, and you know, so I learned from the best, right? And it was sort of like, okay, I've been doing this for a while, and I just felt it was time to speak, so to speak.
Right. So let's kind of go back. You mentioned you were raised in Philly, and your instrument, I'll say your prime instrument, is trumpet, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. And so now, are you also teach music as well?
I
Did I
do.
read that? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I thought.
I was so I taught at my alma mater, University of the Arts, for about 3 years. But then my touring schedule kind of got too much,
Hmm.
and I was kind of more focusing on my craft, honestly, my art at that time. But the whole time I've been touring, Marco, I've always maintained a trumpet studio, and I felt that's really important for me as a person because I don't think I would not be here without the guidance of two really great trumpet teachers in my life.
Hmm.
And you know, the teaching is a special calling, and I enjoy it, and I also learn, right? So you know, it's kind of nice when I'm like, and I'm, you know, my ego is always at the front door. You know, like I've been blessed, but I've worked hard. You know, so I think that's a key. But also, so if someone calls me up, or you know, I run into, and they're like, hey, would you start my child out on trumpet? And I'm like, absolutely. You know, I don't
Hmm.
mind. I don't have to teach, you know, a graduate student per se. Like I can and I will, and I'll give that person some advice. But a lot of times I really enjoy actually starting off a young child's development and getting them started right, and you know, really getting a foundation going. And you know, one of the reasons because that's just really my story and how I am where I am. You know, my first trumpet teacher, Joe Fallon, I would go, you know, I'm a child of the 80s, so I would bring him a cassette tape and he would have a record player. And he was first call in Atlantic City, so he played, you know, behind Natalie Cole, Tony Bennett, all this stuff. And he would also, you know, play all the shows in Philly, you know, all the Broadway main shows. But, you know, so that's the first time that I heard Clifford Brown or Wynton Marsalis, or Stan Kenton, or, you know, you name it. Like every week I'd have a cassette tape. Halfway through the lesson, he'd flip the record, flip the tape, and I would leave with a cassette tape. And I have all these tapes, hundreds of tapes, that I was, you know, listening to because, as you know, as all really good musicians know, it's in a way it's just as important to listen and to hear all as much great music as you can as it is
Yes.
to practice whatever craft you're learning, whether it's drums or piano or trombone or you name it, singing. You know, like listening to all the greats is really important. Your brain is always recording. So my sophomore album is called Tales of the Tape because of that story. And I'm excited to show some pictures once the album's going to be out of like a still life of, you know, my old Techniques tuner, my Techniques tape deck, about 10 tapes spewing out, my trumpet, my Advent speaker that I had. That was my in my bedroom growing up. And then a buddy of mine let me borrow an analog tape. But Tales of the Tape are that, and that's what it means. It means, you know, me as a youngster just being like, wow, Clifford Brown, this, you know, Clifford Brown, and getting it, you know, and
Hmm.
but being lucky enough to have someone who also knew the gems to give, you know, the seeds to put inside me that, so, because when you mentioned, say, the Mavericks, it's like, I knew, how that stuff, not the Mavericks, but I knew Hector Lavoe, I knew Ray
Mm-hmm.
Barretto, I knew Spanish Harlem Orchestra later, but I was lucky enough to hear some of this stuff. So I had an inkling, but I also knew ska, not per se from my teacher, more from my life, but um, so I wasn't, I felt comfortable, and that's the thing. I guess in musicianship is trying to feel comfortable in all the styles, and that's one of the good things of her. I'd say maybe the great thing about the trumpet is we can fit in every anywhere. Like from an
Mm.
orchestra, from playing a metropolitan opera, to playing in a ska band, to playing in an R&B, to being your version of Miles Davis or Chet Baker or Donald Byrd, to a horn section behind Bruce Springsteen. Like the trumpet can really fit in all everywhere in music, and that's in a way one of the reasons why just marinating with myself as a human and being like, what kind of music do I ultimately want to put out there is in here that people are going to resonate with. One of the Jill Scott is sitting behind her, or 10 feet away from her, just watching her do her thing. Like she just exposed herself in such a beautiful way, that it was amazing watching that transformation of like Jill from the green room to like Jill Scott, the artist on stage, and then the
Mm.
reaction that you would get from the audience in front of her, just watching that, and that's literally something you could touch. You could feel it in the air. It was that poignant and that vulnerable, honestly. And but it was like that's the magic. I mean, her, maybe one of the best voices you'll ever hear in your life. Like, you know,
Absolutely.
I'm waiting for she should put an opera record out. She could do that. She could be Billie. She could have a big band record out. She could do anything she wants. But truly, one of the I don't know, just unspoken or just what it is about her. It's like her vulnerability is breathtaking. It's all inspiring. It's inspiring. So just trying to be a little bit like her. just
You mentioned Jill Scott, the Mavericks, and you mentioned hard work. As a musician, I mean, I guess like when you decide you want to be a musician for your life, then I guess the thing is trying to figure out how to play with different folks and how to get hired on session gigs and that sort of thing. Talk about that process for you because that obviously all leads up to being able to watch a Jill Scott or being able to understand playing with the Mavericks and being able to fit into different spaces and informs you when you're ready to do your own record. So talk about that process of the work it took to work with so many different artists and get hired by so many different folks of different genres.
Well, I thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm trying my best to make great music, but I have to say I'm really proud of my record as a musician, as a sideman. As they say, it's priceless, right? You can't put a price on starting your trumpet in fourth grade and taking it through high school and believing in yourself to keep going, and then having these doors kind of open and you walk through them and do that. You know, I would say it comes back to sound. I would say you have to develop your sound, right? Speaking to musicians out there, like you have to develop your sound, especially in trumpet. I would say wind instrument way. I was always cognizant and was always taught, your calling card kind of is your sound, and it's a lot harder, not a lot harder because every instrument has its thing, but trumpet you got to spend some time to really get a sound happening that is gonna like have people be like, well, that's different. That's I don't know what he's doing or she's doing there, but that's different. And because there's a lot of trumpeters with a lot of great verbiage, and they can that they can dance, they can do a lot of stuff. But to me, I was always told like until you have a sound that's something, people aren't going to want to really know as much as they should about what you play until your sound is there. Like there's a sound where it's like, whoa. I mean, because when you think of Miles, the beauty of Miles, like, was his sound. Like, you know what a Davis record's on because of his sound with one note. Chet Baker, one note. Clifford Brown, even one note. But it's, it's brilliant as his verbiage and his bebop awareness was like, to me the best of all time. But still, Miles is in that conversation because of his sound. Like it's like you spent the time to make your sound a thing. And that's a special thing about trumpet is like it's a noble instrument. But it's like when you can make that noble instrument sound so pretty and buttery and warm and big and expressive, you're talking to a different level. Now at the same time, if you ever play with the Mavericks, you got to work on a lot of trumpet stuff, which is like the high register and Latin, in articulation and quite frankly high notes, and it takes a minute to kind of get all that going. But I think honestly, Marco, first it's about the music. First it's sound, and second it's about the music. It really has nothing to do with me, right? Because one of the things I will say is I've been blessed, because I've been thought enough to be hired in situations where a lot of times I'm the minority by a lot, and I'm very cognizant of that, and I'm very appreciative of that. But I think it speaks to the fact that I'm treating the music as it should, and I do have a soul, and I'm a soulful person. I happen to be white, but I'm also soulful. So it doesn't, that translates, and it has mattered, I guess, because I've been, the sticking power has been here. But and I guess going back to like even the Fred Hammond, like making that Fred Hammond record was the first Grammy winning record that I did. It's special when you're in a studio making music like that. Truly was. I've always was also taught by some great, mentors that it's like, live is a thing, but making records is like kind of like a really, really special thing. And you really should always treat it that way. And if you're lucky enough to get hired, like just shut your mouth. Like don't, it's not about you. So whatever great thing you think you're going to be saying at this moment, do me a favor and shut up. and because guess what? There's a producer in the room, right? There's a songwriter in the room. Like you're hired to play trumpet. So like keep that in perspective and try to play the most beautiful trumpet part that you can possibly play and make it fit in as beautifully. So the music therefore actually gets that much better because they brought you in, right? And because there's it's interesting. You could have different people play the same line I've played on records, but there's a thing where it's like maybe some of their ego is coming out too much, and it's like listen to me, as opposed to well, if you just approach that line a little bit more subtly, and make everything else sound better because of what you injected or interject, as opposed to, so I don't know, I can hear it's like almost sticking out in a way as opposed to blending in a more beautiful way. It's like thinking of the less is more, and it's about everybody. It's not about you. So
Right.
I've always tried to have that approach.
Right. It's Rhythm and Soul Radio. We are talking with musician Matt Cappy. We was just saying, talking about soul, and soul certainly has no color, and good music has no color. It's all about the good music. Matt Cappy has a new single out now called "Look at Us Now," featuring B. Slade and Brenda Roy. Talk about how that came about. B. Slade is an amazing artist. We feature him regularly here on Rhythm and Soul Radio. Had the opportunity to talk with him a number of times, but talk about how bringing those voices, B. Slade and Brenda Roy, together for this particular single.
Well, yes, I agree with what you said. B. Slade is a special musician. He's a special human. He is so talented in so many different ways. He's just, talking about a guy who just is comfortable in the studio and knows how to make everything sound incredible. But one of the last touring gig I was on was with Miss Patti LaBelle, and
Mm.
I was with her for about a year. I've been with her about 3 years now. We did a tour back in 2012 where they added a horn section, and then it was a nice big summer tour with Frankie Beverly and Maze, and it was and Babyface. It was incredible, and then thanks very much, but she generally didn't ever tour with horns. So then I guess the top of like 17 and the 18 maybe, like she wanted actually horns again. So we came back and we were there, and then a year in, like Brenda Roy had been there for a while. She's been one of Patty's background singers for a while, and then entered B Slade. He was available and he was interested, and of course Patty was like, I would love to have this gentleman. So B Slade starts touring with us. So we just struck up a friendship from being out on the road playing gigs together, and um, I was sharing him nuggets of the upcoming album. And so I do have an instrumental of Look at Us Now called Look at Us. And we're starting to write songs together for just other projects. And I was just thinking other songs to try to get him on. But he heard this and he's like, man, he goes, that's your original? I was like, yeah, because I love that melody. Like, you mind if I start writing to it? And I was like, really? He was like, absolutely. So we were in a hotel room in Sarasota, Florida, and in about 3 hours, we had talked about different stories. Like it was nice too. It was a great process because he's very open, and we were just throwing suggestions back and forth to each other, and ultimately, it came to. At first, it was like, well, what if it was like a guy, and a man and a woman, and the man finally was like, you know what. I thought it was working. It's not working. Look at me now. I'm going to go my other way. And then, or it could have been the other thing where the woman was giving the guy chances, and then finally she meets another guy and goes. And then I was like, well, you know what? Like, nothing but nothing. It's it could make it personal. And let's do that. Like, look at us now. Meaning, like my wife and I've been just celebrated 10 years of marriage. We have
Congratulations.
thank you two boys, 8 and 6. But we were together 10 years prior to that. So we've been together all told like 20, 21 years. 10 years married, but in those first 10 years, again, touring a lot, being young, the relationship was passionate, but sometimes not so great. I had work to do as a person, as a mature partner, and vice versa. And then so sometimes we were apart, we're mostly together, and then but so the Look at Us Now is like, if we showed up tomorrow at your backyard party or like at a debut in New York City somewhere, like you see my wife and I get out of the car, you just like, wow, like two good, nothing, two sharp looking people, and man, they must have a perfect life. Look at them, they're happy, they blah blah blah, and it's like you would never know. Like that's just the point of a true relationship that has so much depth underneath the waterline, and but
Mm.
it took work, and it took looking yourself in the mirror and calling each other out, and never realizing that there was too much to give up on and too much good to just give up on it. And but ultimately, if you just keep working, like here we are, like, and never been better. And I'm just so being a parent has been such a blessing. It's like to all the parents out there, like crossing that line, it's like you kind of, I felt like an official adult at that point. Like it's like and in some weird way, it was way more relaxing to be a musician and to live my life, which is crazy because now you have more responsibility and financial and this and that, but mentally it was just such a beautiful gift to just look at this beautiful human you created with this woman you love, and it's like, wow, that's like truly a blessing of life. So that storyline came together, and so B laid his part, and then he was like, you know what, we got to add Brenda. Like this would be incredible. All and like Brenda, I don't know, it was late, and she happened to be up, and so she came down to and so B always has like recording stuff with him. So the
I
vocals
was going to
do.
ask if you had the recording studio traveling or he had it traveling with
He had it
one.
traveling, but I had the song had already been recorded trumpet wise, or like as the rhythm section with me, and
Mm-hmm.
then we just added that, and the magic hit, you know.
Nice. It's Rhythm and Soul Radio. We're talking with Matt Cappy. The single is "Look at Us Now" with Slade and Brenda Roy. We're going to play it in just a minute. It is the first single from the Tales of the Tape LP, which will be your second album, right?
Second album, yes. Yeah,
right,
and
right
now, we're looking at right now we're looking at May 28th as a release. So we're getting close.
Okay, we're getting close. Very, very soon. Very soon.
Yes,
So we'll
yes.
definitely be looking forward to it. How do people follow you, find you, website, social media, all that, so people can keep up and follow your music and your career along the way?
No, I appreciate that. Well, website is mattcappy.com, mattcappy.com. Social media like Instagram and Facebook Music is just one word, Matt Cappy Music, all one word. Twitter is Matt_Cappy. Yeah, on my website, please share your email. Would love to get in touch with you and let you know when I'm coming to your city, and things are ramping up that way. So it looks to be great once the world opens up. I'm vaccinated, so that's wonderful. And I hope everyone is hanging in after this tough pandemic. But I think there is light at the end of the tunnel, and hopefully it'll be sooner than later.
Absolutely, there is light at the end of the tunnel, and music will help us get to the light at the end of the tunnel. And Matt, we thank you for your music. We thank you for your contributions to so many wonderful projects over the years that all of us have had the chance to enjoy, and look forward to enjoying the new upcoming album, Tales from the Tape, Tales of the Tape, and of course the current single that we're getting into right now, Matt Cappy featuring Slade and Brenda Roy, "Look at Us Now." It's Rhythm and Soul Radio. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Marco.